Hello and welcome back to the Grateful Not Greedy podcast. My name is Chris, and today I just want to let you know that we are taking a little 2-week hiatus between season 1 and season 2. So we just wrapped up season 1. We'll be back with season 2 in a couple weeks, but in the meantime, we're going back on some memorable episodes from season 1 and doing a re-release. So enjoy this next episode all about life regrets. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Grateful Not Greedy podcast. My name is Chris, and I am here with my amazingly gorgeous, fantastic, fresh co-host, Rachel. How are you, Rach?
Hi, thank you for the lovely introduction today.
I think you're just looking way fresher than I am, so I just had to, I want to kind of just put a little like hibiscus right there in your little, and your like
Actually,
behind your ear, whatever you all do over there.
I just came in from battling the jungle. Like literally, I was out there with my weed whacker
That's what
trying to
I
beat
mean.
it back.
When I say fresh, I mean like fresh cut, like literally fresh cut.
Yeah. And
So
I'm
I'm
going to
glad.
report back the jungle's winning,
The
just so you know.
jungle's winning. Yeah. Well, I say that though because I have today a topic to kind of run by you that I think is just going to be a little. It's not heavy, but it's just like I need your fresh perspective.
Sure.
I need some support on this because I'm kind of thinking about that. It feels heavy to me. So I'm looking for
Yeah.
some release, and I'm looking for it in the context of our Grateful Not Greedy. How do I move this around? So again, my turn to be, I guess, on the spot a little bit here. But I think you will have, everyone in
Yes.
our tribe, our Grateful Not Greedy tribe, has a story, I believe, probably has something like this, unless they're like a monk, because it just happened. Okay, so this weekend I had like the great fortune, honestly, like the great fortune of being with my business school roommate and his wife, who I also went to business school with. So I have known them for a long time. Just a long time. Okay. Just not a long time. A long time. I went to business school, not yesterday. So we we are coincidentally now in the same context of kind of doing similar things. Our lives are kind of running parallel a little bit, right? So you imagine
Mhm.
back in business school, your lives run parallel too, right? You're with a bunch of people who are doing similar types of things, even though in business school you might go into, finance, your friend might go into marketing, someone might go into, something else, like write for TV. Who knows what's going to happen for after business school? But you're all like about that same
Mhm.
age. You're all in that grad school kind of time, post undergrad, pre, more heavily exec level and all that when you're just trying to figure it out. So we're kind of talking about, some of the choices that are available and some of the things that you're thinking about for, what the kids can do now and what's available to them. So they were talking about their daughter, or she was talking about her daughter maybe wanting to go into finance. And she was like, well, yeah, but I don't know. I don't really know if, because she's getting an econ degree, and I don't really know, everyone just thinks you go into finance if with an econ degree, which is not true at all. And she's like, yeah, so I'm kind of encouraging her to do something else. And I was like, Why? Why? Why would you be encouraging her to do something else other than finance?" And she's like, "Well, it's just really not me." And I was like, "Oh, that's like super interesting, right?" And it's not her, but it is totally me. So I was like, "Well, then when she gets to that point where she has to decide if she's going to go into finance, then you need to tell her to call me, because I will totally tell her the 14 ways that she can be in finance and be, super happy with it. And, there's just a lot of avenues, in my opinion, there's a lot of avenues available if you want to go into finance." And then I literally said to her out loud, I was like, honestly, it's one of, if not the biggest regret of my life, is leaving
Mhm.
my finance job. So I've been sitting with that like all weekend. And it's not the first time I've said this in my life. It's not, I've said it to you before, right? It's just, and I'm reflecting on it like over the weekend. And, it's heavy when you're, all like there's a lot of shifting right now in September, right? Everyone's going, back to school, kids are going to college, kids are going to high school, there's just a shift across everyone. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, there's just a lot of movement. If you're at the airport, you see it, there's just a lot going on. So I
Mhm.
thought, wow, that was a long time ago. And that's sitting here with me as like a real regret. So
Mhm.
I want to like talk. I want you to talk me off the ledge a little bit with this because this is really
Sure.
a grateful not greedy conversation, right? Because there there are you say you never look back, right? Just don't look back. And there's so many opportunities for regret to live inside of you if you don't take the opportunity to look on the grateful side or to, have a fresh perspective. And again, not to discount the way I feel about leaving that whole industry. It wasn't just like that job. And I will say, obviously we're sitting here today. One of the great things that came from me leaving that job was meeting and working with you, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of other
Right. Well,
really, really, really amazing people too, way outside. And I did not have that in my ethic. So, um, yeah, help me, help me think about that just in
sure.
terms of like regret. You probably have an example. We all probably do. I could probably name a few others because this is something, it's a little bit of a personal struggle with mine. I don't think I'm alone in this. I think there are other people who maybe it's just kind of like, it's a lot of the what ifs. And that's what this grateful, not greedy concept is about. I mean, I have so many what ifs about leaving that industry, especially when I left it at that point in my career that I want to flesh through it.
Sure. I want to pick up on something you said, never like not looking back. And I don't think that that's necessarily the case. It's not that. I think for me, it's not living in the past, but looking back to understand.
Oh, okay.
And right.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between like not looking back to understand, or looking back and like living in the past and continually like reliving it and beating yourself up over it.
I love
So
that.
I
Okay.
think it might be worth a minute to just take a minute and look back at that period and why you chose that, like what happened. Because yes, you were at a fork in the road, right? There was a decision.
Yes.
And the only way, here's the what regret really stems from is making a choice and then not being happy with the choice you made, right? That's what regret is.
Yeah.
Like a very simplified, very, very simplified thing.
Yeah.
And making choices and making decisions is a skill. We
Yeah.
have to learn it, we have to practice it. And so we're going to go back to this time for a minute to look back and realize that you were definitely more practiced at making choices and decisions now.
I'm probably more practiced. I don't know if I'm actually that better at it, but it's like
I don't
interesting.
know.
It's
I
like
would
interesting
disagree
when you
here.
said that. It's like it's a practice, but I think I still have some bit of paralysis around these decisions. I think that's coming out of this podcast.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah,
kind of
for sure. It doesn't mean that
paralysis.
they're easy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that there's never regret now. But now every time you make a decision, you're making a decision based on hopefully what you've learned from the previous decisions you've made, the previous choices you made.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're open to it, let's go back to that moment or that time in your life and why that fork happened. Because you can clearly say, I regret not doing that. But there was something that was drawing you the other direction
Well,
that,
I mean, it's kind of simple. There's a couple things. It's kind of simple.
okay.
First of all, let me just say, and anyone who has done like hard things, right, can appreciate this. When you work so hard to finish your undergrad, be reasonably competent, then you go back to grad school. You spend years at that, and there's a lot of work involved in that, and then you get out and you struggle. Like I definitely struggled getting my first job out of business school. Went back to New York, just tried, and then it's not like I was a whiz at finance. It's not like I was like they were recruiting me from all over the place, and I think that's probably maybe some of it too. It's It's that, there was that opportunity that presented itself for me and I remember telling my other friend from school, I was like, "Oh, I think I just found the most amazing job because my job largely depends upon me reading the Financial Times every day and understanding what's going on in the world." And to me,
Wow.
that sounded amazing. I mean, really, like it's my job to like pull out the Wall Street, at the time we actually had papers. Pull out the Wall Street Journal, pull out the Financial Times, understand globally what's going on in the world, and then be able to say with any of these individual companies what's going on within the individual companies, like listening to all these conference calls, things that would bore the bejesus out of a lot of people. They would just be like, "This is the worst job ever." But for me, like that was a really good job. And I think what happened with that is I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting to say. I was at a small firm and I'm not a person who does well, I think now in retrospect, and this is important, I guess, for everyone to kind of say, um, who does well in those smaller environments. Like for me, being at a big firm with lots of inputs and lots of resources and lots
Right.
of, ways to go and avenues and different people to
Yeah.
engage with and all that. So I kind of had to go outside of our firm because I was the only analyst. It was a tiny little firm. And again, I wasn't that great at it. I'm not like saying I was amazing. I really wasn't that great at it. I was fine. I was fine. But I wasn't as competent. And this is actually cathartic to even say this because uh, I would have been better in another firm that had more analysts like me to feed off of, to learn from,
Mhm.
to get
To grow
support,
from.
to
Mhm.
yeah, to grow from. And I remember even having to call some of the other, people down from the city and whatnot because they all, of course, live all over the place and just get support from them, on the writings that they were doing about the companies that I was covering, et cetera, et cetera. So I think okay, this is helpful because I think it's really just that unknown, like that uncharted territory is the regret, right? Because you're looking at it
Mm.
and what I see is nothing but possibility, nothing but my career opening up. And then, I go down to some other firm and obviously, you make good money working on Wall Street. There's like lots of that comes with it. I find the work very interesting and appealing. I think that's what my friend and I were differing. I think she hasn't worked in the industry, so her impression of the industry is just a bunch of greedy investment bankers, which there certainly are those. Um,
Mhm.
but the industry is much more wide open than that. Just like any industry, any industry,
Right.
you're going to have that. In film, you're going to have those EPs who are just like totally jerky and out for the money and selling everyone's soul. And then you're going to have the people who really just, doing good work and trying to make a dime here and there. So it's kind of the same thing. So I think probably I have a little bit of fantasy going on in my head about what that would have been or what that would have given me. And I haven't compensated for that in my other life. I haven't, it's not like,
Right.
oh, then I went and I don't know, like discovered this thing and then, discovered the internet, like someone else probably did. So I didn't discover the internet. So then I have this big kind of gap and I create this big fantasy about what it would have been to stay in banking or to stay in finance or to stay in the East Coast. I mean, I have that fantasy too. There's all
Right.
this stuff embroiled in it. So riddle me that. Like kind of like what do I do with that? Like what is that?
Well, I mean, when you look at those pieces of all the opportunity, every day, I would argue every day we have endless opportunity, right? Like everything that sits in front of us, your
Yeah.
opportunities haven't narrowed. They're just as broad and just as big and just as exciting. The difference
Mhm.
was is you were at the foundation. You had only up from there and
Yes.
you had so much growth and you were young and, like fresh out, young, like
Yes.
big during, all of those things that accompany that, which is great. Um, and the point of this is like the grateful not greedy is you still have limitless possibilities and you still have limitless options. However, whether it's finance or something else or doing this, like the options are endless,
Yeah.
right? Of how this all unfolds. And so is the regret specifically related to not pursuing finance or is the regret by not taking advantage of all the possibilities?
Right. Or uh, yeah, or making up possibilities, right?
Right? Like, I
Or
mean, it
making
is
up like
like,
all these
is the regret like,
possibilities.
would you if you I mean, Chris, you have, you've gone back to school and become a nurse. I mean, you've done so much. So if you really wanted to go back to finance, trust me, I know you would figure it out. Like if you really wanted it.
Maybe, but then I think that's what I'm holding on to. We've said this before. There's those moments in time that you can't go back to. You cannot.
No, you can't.
You
Of
can't.
course,
You
you can't go
never
back to any
figure
moment.
out a way to be in finance. That's I think. So now that we're talking about this, I think it's that core. Like you said, you're young. You have all this energy. You have all this capacity, and for most a lot of people who work really hard early on in their life, and you go to college, you try and do the best you can, then you go to grad school, what you do, whatever you do, and or whatever you're doing in your work life. But
Mhm.
if you've spent time like forging a path, and then you just get to the part where the tree is like blossoming, and then you cut down the tree. I just feel like I cut my tree down. And I don't like that in life. I hate cutting down trees,
I
even when you have to. But yeah,
I
so
know.
it's like, so to your point, it's kind of like, yeah, I don't want to hold on to that. I don't want to hold on to that mythology really that I've created about the
Mhm.
job and what it would be. And truthfully, I could have gone and worked for some of these other firms, and I won't even mention their names, but they closed. Why? Because some trader went rogue and exposed the whole firm, and these
Right.
firms that were hundreds of years old, just collapsed. Like there are
Right.
people who had other terrible things happen because they happen to be in certain buildings that were attacked. Like there's a
Right.
lot of things that I
It's
can take away from, like I said, the mythology or the fantasy that I have about there could have been a really good reason that I was scooped out of that. Interestingly enough, when you say like something's pulling you, well, yes, I was being pulled to go with my then boyfriend, now husband, to
yeah.
another state. Incidentally, at the same time, my firm was closing because
Mm.
we were an extension of a Japanese bank. It's a long story. We were an extension of this Japanese bank, and they just decided that they wanted to go in a different direction with our line of credit. And we had a really big line of credit. And so all of us were repositioning. But my boss at the time was willing to, support all of us in that. But I was like, well, okay, this is a sign. I guess I'll just, go off
Yeah.
and move, and then, struggle that way. And
No.
a lot of stuff goes on. There's a lot of stuff that happened in my life right after that that made my life very challenging. In other ways,
Mhm.
personally, very challenging. So maybe even that was kind of like a reason that I had to be there. Like, I think you just don't know. So how do I let go of this? How do I let go of this fantasy? And how do I
Mhm.
kind of, like I really I'm sorry to put you on the spot this way and like really supporting me therapeutically, because it is like, how do I let go of this, like for good, and recognize that this is like now it really is just a fantasy, because I don't have the hard truth. You can't
No.
ever look
No.
at the exact line, right? I can't take that line in here and compare it to this line. There's no lifeline that you can compare, right? I only have the lifeline that I've created just to say, and my lifeline is totally fine. There's
Yeah.
nothing that I'm like, "Oh, my lifeline, I just I just really went about it the wrong way." I think it's the fantasy and the mythology, like I'm saying. I think there's an achievement factor in there for sure that,
Mhm.
woulda, coulda, shoulda, kind of like I could have been a contender, like there's kind of that in there,
Right.
especially being in bigger firms, more opportunities, for my
Right.
personality. Like there's a lot of things that fit with a bigger firm like that. So yeah, like how do I get rid of that greed? Because there's so much greed there. The greed, like literal greed, like I would have loved that cash, but also just the greed for the lifestyle, the greed for maybe the ego boost that it would have given
The
me,
recognition.
the
Yeah.
recognition, the
Mhm.
attention, all of those things that go in when you have those kinds of jobs. Someone tells me they're a VP at whatever. I'm like, wow, well, because I know that that's a thing. Like that is, they don't just hand those jobs out, right? So, yeah, I think
So you're
all that.
asking like how to let it go.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, and you did that like this is a fantasy you've created over time. So you've kind of embellished it over time. And anytime I would assume like you were just seeing your business school friends
Hmm.
and that like reignites that feeling because you all went through that and that was that step into the finance world for you and you made a choice. And so part of it is I would acknowledge it, you know, say whatever it is, like this fantasy, there's definitely regret there and the possibilities that could have come from that I am still craving that
Yeah.
because there's part of you that still wants that craves that, which is why it's coming up.
Mm.
And then like I would say like forgive yourself, right?
Yeah. That's a really,
Because it's like you did make the right choice at the right time for you. And you had no idea how this all was going to go, but you were going with like you said it was a sign. You're like, okay, I was struggling between these two options. And then it became clear that this door opened and it was
mhm.
a good door to walk through. Um, but I think it's like really like forgiving yourself and acknowledging
Yeah.
that. And then decide like what is it you want now? Is there something you can do now that's going to feed that part of you that you feel like you ignored? That
Yeah.
you did not tend to, that you did not grow. And you use the analogy of like cutting down, I chopped the tree down. Okay, so maybe you did take the tree down, but now you have space where that tree was. I remember when you had to cut the trees down in your front at the front of your
Oh
house.
my
I know it
God.
was
I know that.
super
I
traumatic.
said
We
that
could
and it's
talk about
still,
a
it's
whole
still traumatic.
podcast.
I could, I could spend probably 3 hours of everyone's time, at least probably 30 hours of
I know.
everyone's time talking about my tree debacles on
I
all
know.
sides of my,
It's so
because I
true.
live in like a
It
little hippie
is.
forest, but not anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
But yes,
But the idea of like, yes, you cut that tree down so you could plant another.
yeah,
And your other one was like planting a life with your partner, with your husband.
yeah,
And that grew to a family, which is also now a little forest
yeah. I
that
guess
are
that's true. Right, exactly.
right.
Yeah,
So
that's
you cut down that tree, yes. And there is some mourning of that, just like you mourned when you come down into your front yard. But now you look at it and you have planted many more things. And that's where if there's something that you still want to plant, the options are still available, whether it's finance or recognition or feeling like acknowledgement, whatever it is that you feel like you missed from that. Can you get it now? And what does that look like? Like, what will fulfill that for you? Maybe it's not finance. Maybe it's like, who knows, doing this sort of thing and being acknowledged for it. Or maybe it's a, a podcast for on finance and how like why it's so amazing, whatever it is that you feel like you cut off and didn't tend to,
yeah.
maybe it's something you can tend to now in your life. I mean, and of course, we all have regret, to your point. We all have it. There's all like choices that we make. We're like, wow, okay, that one wasn't the best decision ever. Um, and the key there for me, every time, like when I hit those moments and I look
Yeah.
back, I'm like, well, I learn from it? And then what do I do now with it? Right.
Yeah.
And it's like,
So
did
maybe
I learn
I
from that? What do I do?
maybe right, right, because I think embroiled in there is, my friend's daughter, and I'm just like almost envious that she is at that same juncture or could conceivably be at that
Mm.
same
Yeah.
juncture. And now that we're talking about, right, it's like, oh God, it's just like floods you. That's why these conversations, I mean, people need to understand, if you're listening to this, we really are having this conversation. This is not like a canned thing that we like plan. But just thinking about her and thinking about her mom saying, like, I'm kind of
Mm.
like, maybe giving her some other options because that's not me. I similarly did not have anyone in my life who understood that industry in that way. Like I
Mm.
didn't, and a lot of a lot of people do, which is why they get into that. Or I didn't, I have friends who are on the institutional side and institutional investors and, do the big things for big companies and
Yeah.
school boards and the whole thing. And
Sure.
I just had no idea that that was even a thing, until
Well,
much later. Right. So it's like just
right.
seeing all those little break points.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like it's really helpful. And I think it's not so much to say I think there's a little bit of a I don't want to say like there's just kind of like a like why do I think that has to be the thing that I hold on to? And admittedly,
Mm.
like I'm very good at math. I'm not saying I wasn't good at math. I'm very good at math, but I wasn't like it's not like because I wasn't in a situation where I wasn't awesome. I wasn't like I'm the best analyst that's ever been and da 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 da, kill kill kill. Like it wasn't like that. Um not to say that, everyone can figure this out. It's not like that. But so maybe like there's a little piece of that. And I was even reflecting on, yeah, like the different math classes that, I'll sit and do SAT math for fun. That's the kind of person that I am. Just, just to give everyone a full
Love it.
picture of the level of nerd geek weirdo that I am. Honestly, like that's like my idea of like, oh, fun, I'll figure this problem out. And if I can't figure it out, I'll
Mhm.
like YouTube and like figure, oh, that's right. I missed that point. And that was so easy. And I can't believe I didn't see that before, that kind of stuff. I mean, just because I think it's fun solving problems. But there's probably a lot of ways to do that. So yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really there's kind of a lot in what you said for me personally. And I think
Mhm.
the greedy part though is that it's so greedy to hold on to that choice as though it's real. Like
Yes.
as though that's a real thing that I, gave up. I'm holding the greed that I get, like the what I get, like we talked before, like what I get is my like need for this like smallness. I get to have my, my little small world. And here the
Yeah.
greed is, I get to have this fantasy that's not even real about and my life now is very real. And I do spend a lot of time, on my actual life. So it's helpful to kind of look at it and say, that really is just like a greedy conversation. Like I want again, it's like I want that not to have happened. I want that not
Mhm.
to have happened so that I at least have another 2 or 3, linear graph that I could show like, "Oh, and then this happened after 2 or 3 years." And I maybe that's it. Maybe that's like I went through the whole option, the whole habit trail. You know what I mean? Like a whole thing,
Yeah.
whole circle. And then I finished that circle and then kind of came back. So that I mean, maybe that's kind of all part of it. But on the grateful side, okay, let's break this down because it is a lot. And I hope I mean, do you not have any regret? You probably don't. You're probably a monk. You're probably one of these
No,
monk people who doesn't have any
I
regrets.
think
You're like, no, I've worked them all out.
no.
I don't have any regrets. What are you
I
talking, Chris? Yes.
Yeah, no, I do. I certainly do have regret. And there was a point where I thought I was going to go to like continue going to school after I graduated, and like I was like really leaning towards law school, and I was like, oh, I'll just take a little time. I'll go to Spain for a year, do some work, and then it just like life got in the way. And not that I would want to be an attorney, and I think I chose the right, but there was like that part of me that was like, what would have that looked like? Like
Yeah.
what could have happened there
Right.
and like what opportunities could have opened up there. And and it's like the one thing I am for me for grateful not greedy is like, yeah, there could have been a whole different world, like a whole different path. But for me, I love where I am right now in my life.
Right.
Like I am truly excited about it. And it's like it's a really great time for me. And all the things that I chose, whether they're poor choices or choices I am proud of or choices I regret, all of those things brought me to here. And so for me, my regret, I release a lot of it by considering it that way
Mhm.
because it got me to this point. And there's a lot I am so grateful for. And yeah, there are things I probably lean in and be like, oh, I'm greedy. I did that. Like, that was not the smartest choice. Like, I regret making that decision. I regret like doing that, thing. And, but I look at it and I'm just like, overall, this made me who I am.
Yeah.
And this flavored who you are as well. And this, Chris, for you is perhaps it's time for you to talk to your friend's daughter and share your experience with her about what it was to you, because maybe that is one way of processing some of this regret. So someone else can hear the side of what you wish you didn't walk away from, or what you've thought about long since walking away from that,
Right. Right.
and that you don't want her to have the same experience.
Right.
And,
Right. That's
this is like
a
an
loaded
awesome
question
opportunity for
because
that.
that, I mean, that's a loaded comment too, because that is also, gosh, I didn't anticipate this coming up, but it's like being true to yourself. And I think maybe there's like some element of that in there. Like I just said,
Mm.
like I do SAT math for fun, like I love reading the financial, I think that stuff is amazing. But there's, yeah, like it's having the courage in those moments to be true to yourself in whatever way. And I would say that I was also true to myself in making the choice that I did to, as you say, to like,
Mhm. Yeah.
follow I'll get married and have a family line, but I could have worked, like I just didn't have a way to think about it. But, I would have a better decision making process now. Even if I made the
Yes.
same decision, I think now I would have, I'm older, hopefully wiser. I would have probably a better schematic of
Mhm.
the, how it would look to make this decision, and I would feel more comfortable having, even if I, like I said, even if I end up making the same decision, which I probably would, who knows? I would probably feel more comfortable, yeah, like having that. It's just interesting how much comes up from one little greedy conversation. This is a conversation about
Mhm.
regret, how to process that regret. But then it's like, well, what is that regret about? And what other greed is swirling around in there? What other grateful is
Mm.
swirling around in there? And grateful to, as you said, obviously process all those things, get to the point where you can say, and if you can do this because you're a yogi, so this is like really helpful. I also am a yogi, did the whole thing, but I don't know if I'm quite monkish that way to be able to get to the point where you're just like, I am grateful that I I made it to here, and all that swirl, all those cut trees ended up becoming part of who I am, right? Like that is processed who I am. The reason that I am here, have all the sensibilities that I do, it's because of all those little experiences along the way. That being one of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah,
Even the work that was
absolutely.
there, that leaving it, leaving the city, leaving like all those things that come from that. Yeah, it's just a lot to process to really, I think, to kind of put it together.
Well, and that's what really, yes, we're talking about regret, but really what we're talking about is decision making and making choices. That's what we're talking about. And the process of doing that, you can be happy with it. You can be like not happy with it. You can regret it. There's like all the different results of that.
Yeah.
But the process of going through it, and as I said, like we talked when I said earlier, it's a practice. And the only way to get better at it is to continue to do it. And it's a taught, like we don't come out knowing it. If we're not given the option for choice, I've seen kids who don't have choice and they're given the option of choice, they don't know what to do
Yeah.
because they're not given it.
Right.
So that shows me very quickly, like I saw that in an exchange student we hosted, and I was like, whoa, my job for him is to help him understand how to make choice, like how to choose when he's given options.
Yeah.
Because that skill, like that need is needed through our whole life.
Right.
And here, what you're realizing, what you said is, yes, you might still make the same decision, the same choice today,
Right.
um, but you would go through it very differently
Yeah.
because you are more practiced at it. You have a better understanding. You can weigh things in a better way, and have a better understanding of yourself. Because I think, I mean, for me, I can't speak for you. At that age, when I make those choices, I didn't have a good understanding of who I was and what I needed at that point. I was still
No.
like figuring myself out.
Right.
And so some of that is like, give yourself a break about that. We were just barely finished forming our brains at that
That's
point.
so true. I mean, like, I think
And
probably like a
we're
month before
making
I made
these,
that decision.
yeah, and we're making these huge choices that
They are huge.
impact our
Yep.
entire life.
Yeah.
and we're just getting the point of to finish developing our brain. Like, this is so ridiculous.
Right.
So, there is that. We said this in the other one, like, give yourself grace because
Yeah.
it is true. Like, this was a great skill you practiced. Like you said, you probably would make the same decision. You would come to it differently with different information. But that's where the grateful, not greedy is. The grateful that you had the opportunity to practice it there. The grateful that you did end up in a great place and you are who you are because you made that choice. Like,
Mhm.
I am grateful you made that choice because I probably would have never have met you
That's
if you chose finance.
probably true. That's right. Well,
Right?
and that it's a very good point because even if I would have met you, I have other ways to have met you in the way that we're connected, but I doubt that
Sure.
we wouldn't have this level of connection that we had we not done the work that we've done together. Like we've done a
Yeah.
lot of similar work that allows us to have conversations like these that are seamless because we are aligned on a lot of frameworks, like ways that we can communicate. And I mean, to
Mhm.
your point too, like that brings up all the because to hold on to that greed, to hold on to that, then I have to risk all my other experiences that I've had that have been amazing. I mean, I had a good 8 years of my work life in there that I wouldn't trade for anything. I mean, I just wouldn't trade any of that. Like it was
Yeah.
amazing, like the work life that I had after that. So, and then that's true. I would have to take on whatever unknown stress that would be in that other life, what other
Yeah.
unknown I might have gotten fired. I mean, I could have been
Yeah.
I could have had some kind of SEC, violation. Who knows? Like
Totally.
who knows what's coming
Yeah.
for you? You just have no idea. And then in all that greed, you forget. This is actually very helpful, right? You you get so consumed with that greed of that regret, or like you said, that decision that you made, or whatever, that you don't even give yourself all that space to just look and say, "Oh my gosh, and I am like exceedingly grateful for that another bulk of my career that I mean, I've done some really cool things like with my little career,
Yes.
but the other really awesome bulk that I had where I met some of my still best friends in the
Mhm.
world. I still communicate with so many people from that work life and all that. There's a lot of other things that have gone on. I think it might be harder in the situations where you don't have a replacement. There are
Sure.
situations where people they dig themselves into a really big hole and
Mhm.
they have a regret or they make a decision like you're saying that and they might have made that decision very young as you're saying before that brain is developed at even 16, 17, 18, 20, that have ramifications as we've talked about before that are much more dire than just having a different
Sure.
lifeline that kind of develops. So yeah. Okay. Again, like this is actually really helpful. So, we always say kind of as we're closing these out, it's just like, I'm not like resolved, it's not like, oh, okay, bing, bang, boom.
Right. Regret's all gone
Uh,
and erased.
regrets.
Doesn't
Yeah,
happen that way.
I'm not going to get off this call and do any SAT math at all. Not at all. That book is coming right out. I'm going to be like, let me do
I know it
problems.
is.
I'll just soothe myself, self-soothing, like, okay, I balanced that. I got a little bit better. Oh, okay, I can study my
Uh,
algebra too. Yeah, but it's just being able to make the space for the gratitude that is available to you and not hold on to that greed and that it's so well said what you're saying. It's the decision making is the process that we're holding on to, and whether that's like your perfectionism, you think you can always have it right, or there was an only way, or there was a better way, or whatever. There was the way it went.
Mhm.
That's it. It is what it is.
Yes.
It is what it is. The
Exactly.
wishing, the hoping is not going to change it. What is available to me is to, make my little list of all the things that have gone amazing from the other choices that I've made. Like all the great experiences that I've had. I mean, I've been able to I understand. I know a lot about retail. Why? Because of things that I've had to do in my life. I know certainly a lot about pharmaceuticals. That was really helpful when I, went to learn how to be a nurse. Like there's all these things. I probably wouldn't have even become a nurse, right? Because why? Why would I have had if I, did all that other stuff? So you kind of look at all the little iterations that it brings, and then that's the list, right? So that's the list to focus on. And again, not to say like, oh, you don't need to have those emotions. You don't need to be upset about that fact, but you know what? Fine, I can be. Thank you. I mean, call a friend again. Like there's the things that you can do to process through it. Thank you, Rachel. But
Oh,
then the important part is to as you circulate it, don't sit in that eddy. You know what an eddy is, right?
mhm.
Because we're from Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't sit in that eddy, which is that little thing in the river that just kind of keeps swirling around, right? So don't sit there and stew or just kind of like mope or, you know, swirl in that when you have
Mhm.
all this opportunity to make your list about what all the gratitude moments that you've had that were only available because, well, we don't know if they're only, but they're definitely available in your life because we know they're available because they happened.
Yeah.
Because that's what
And
happened.
they became available when you cut down that tree.
Yes, they became available.
And so that is like
Yeah.
when you cut down a tree, you might be sad you can't put the tree back up, it's cut down, but
Mhm.
then you've just created space for something new to move in,
Yeah,
and you did.
right.
And then you ended up in a whole different career, and I saw you thrive in that, and I got to work alongside you in that career, and it is still, like, the incredible fond memories for me as well.
Yeah.
Super grateful, such a great opportunity, and, um, and it doesn't mean that there's no regret there still, like, there is still a little regret, but look at it, acknowledge it, and then look at, like, "Oh my gosh, you have accomplished and done so much." And and in such an interesting weaving path for you. Like, it's been so
It's
amazing to
been
watch
a
it
little
unfold.
erratic, but yes.
No, not erratic. It is exactly as it should be for you because you're someone who is thrives on learning, growing, evolving, and like diving into something new. And your path has done that. And maybe finance would have not quenched that thirst that you have. Maybe it wouldn't have. Maybe it would have. Who knows?
Who
But
knows,
you
right?
found a way to still quench the thirst for you of finding these things and diving in deep in these topics and then going to something different and diving in deep and then going the other way and you've created so many careers in your lifetime that it's like the
Yeah.
skills that you have are far beyond,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's the thing
Actually,
to
that's
be
another
grateful for
point,
in my
and
mind.
yeah, I love this. Okay, so let's circle it all back, wrap it up, because this is what
Yeah.
honestly, because it's like, this is what I want attached to this episode is my little, like, how to, you know, go quickly through the regret, like, let it happen, let it be, write down what
Mhm.
are you missing, like, that's kinda where you were with it, right? Like, that's what I think you helped me
Yeah.
push through, like, what are you missing or what is it about that you're holding on to? Fine, you know, throw that up on a little bit of paper, but then come back and then your gratitude list will be so much longer. You know, it can be so much more powerful if you allow it to be. If you give yourself that gift of all the gratitude moments that I have, which are so many, like we said, on the other side, based upon that same decision that I have. So yeah, I love how you framed it because it is what it is. You know, there's nothing, you know, it's like you know, that tree is gone. That tree is gone. And I can look at a picture of that tree. I can think about how beautiful that tree. That's the other thing too, even to give recognition for how beautiful that tree is in my memory, right?
Yeah.
If that tree is so beautiful, I was so upset about cutting down. Let me focus on how beautiful, like the beauty of that tree living in my memory, rather than the, you know, the cut down version of that tree, because I do
Mhm.
have like
Yeah.
beautiful oak, you know, metaphorically. I can think about that I have that is really beautiful, and I can allow that beautiful memory not to be this disconnect of a regret in the middle. I could just let it live alongside. You know, here's this beautiful tree. Oh, and then I left that tree. I don't know if it got cut down or not. I didn't. I just when I left it, it looked fine. I left that tree. And then go on to the next tree and the next tree and the next tree. So I actually, after we're done with this, I'm gonna put down a little I'll put down like a little. I'm a terrible drawer, so I won't draw anything else. It'll look like, you know, scuzz. That'll be like, this isn't even anything to be grateful for. But but just even like listing the little trees, you know, like I have
Mhm.
this little forest made up of all of these little trees, these little beautiful moments of whether it's career or, you know, your home life, whatever it is. But for me in this,
Right.
my career for sure. Uh, and then I can look at that. And then at the end of what I will have is this beautiful forest filled with some, some pretty big oak trees and then maybe some smaller trees, maybe some little plants, maybe some squirrels in there, like eating some nuts, like whatever they've got, whatever they need from me. Yeah. And that's a beautiful image actually to put together.
Yeah.
Really.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Go draw your little forest.
I'm gonna draw my yeah. I appreciate you, Rach, because that's I mean, we all have our things, as we've said on this, plenty of times. We all have our things, and just because this is my thing today doesn't mean it's any less of a thing, or it doesn't have to be anyone else's. But I think there's so many times that, at least I can speak for myself. I don't think I'm alone in this. That you have these avenues in life where and even if it's a simple thing, like you say something to someone that you wish you hadn't said. There's always opportunities either to remember that oak tree was that, and then just let it live where it is, or go back and fix it if you can. If there's things like that you have regrets, there's never, you can always have other opportunities. And you were so helpful to point that out too. If those are things that you still want to plant, you can certainly plant. It might take 10 years for that to grow again, but you can certainly, if that's your commitment, you can certainly do that. So thank you.
Yeah.
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 I
Thank you.
like, I don't feel resolved, but I do feel better. Like I do, I feel better. I feel
Good.
lighter. I feel like we've, yeah, had a good way to kind of express this whole conversation and and it just shows us too, like how important it is to be able to, yeah, like get on a podcast, talk to a friend, go for a walk, have some
Yes.
intercession to,
Mm-hmm.
break your, was listening to something recently, like to break your brain from
Yeah.
fixating on that thing, right? Like throw
Right. And
cold water
mindset.
on your face or
Yeah.
something. Yeah,
Right.
very helpful.
And I think for you and for me as well, it's a lot of processing and processing through talking and talking to someone that understands you and can see you and hear you. And then there's, like you said, you'll continue to move through this when we get off the phone and
Yeah.
like do the things and it'll slowly like kind of dissipate. It'll just kind of like, you know, that's the aim or that's the hope.
Right.
And if it
Yeah.
doesn't, we'll talk about it again because
Well, that's the thing.
we
Or,
can.
you always have something you can kind of come back to because as you've said a million times, it's like it's all these things are practiced. It doesn't mean that you've had one conversation and then okay, then that's over. Yes, it's you keep putting
Right.
it in front of yourself to practice this thinking this way or to practice just being this way and to practice setting up your mental state that way. So for all that, I am super grateful. So
Mm.
honestly, thank you for
Mm.
hanging in there with
Thanks,
me.
Chris.
Really, really appreciate it. So this has been, is, and forever will be the Grateful Not Greedy podcast. Thank you so much for being with me tonight, Reach. Really appreciate it. And aloha.
Aloha.